Hey, Dan, good to have you here and have a quick chat about our experience working together on LinkedIn and bringing more eyeballs and signups to the Napkin Academy. I'd like to just kick off here. If you could just describe what you do, kind of what the business is, and how you help people.
Oh, absolutely, Owen. And it's always a pleasure to chat. So thanks for the opportunity to do it one more time. I kind of do three things in the business world. I come up with a big idea that will be about work that I've typically done in the consulting world. And then out of that idea, I will write a book. And then out of that book, I will be invited to come and do speeches and training. So it's kind of like idea, book, and training. And across all three of those, I have different outputs, if you will. I have my consulting practice. I have the fact that I've published books, and then I have my training program, both online and then sort of invitational keynotes. So summarizing the business that I do, Owen, it's that the core in all of them is I really like to think about working with leaders either at large organizations or at startups in helping them really, really clarify and crystallize their message so that they can deliver it as effectively as possible. Obviously, with the idea being of selling as much of their product or service as they can. And the way I do that is by helping that person be very visual in their storytelling.
Yeah, you're a multiple best-selling author. You have a substantial consulting business in place, which most people don't. So kudos on that. But we focused on a more passive, remote type of business endeavor for you, which will allow you to obviously earn an income, impact lives, but also not have to travel as much. So can you talk a little bit about what that is and what your process was or how things were going prior to us getting together, and then the progress we were able to, present to you throughout our engagement and kind of where you're at today?
Oh, yeah, Owen. So I have long dreamed and have worked on the idea of, in addition to live training at events, is it possible to do something online, asynchronous, remote, et cetera, which all, of course, got super amplified over the last couple of years because of all the reasons that we don't even need to talk about. We're all locked at home, et cetera. And so I launched something called the Napkin Academy, and I launched it a decade ago, which was always intended to be an online training school for people who want to become more familiar with this idea of visual problem solving, and in particular the process and the approach that I recommend. So I had put this program together, and there's one element which is you build all the content out and the videos and the training programs and the curriculum and the support materials. But then there's a second element is getting people to actually come there. So it's one of these, if you just build it, that don't guarantee that they're going to come. So that becomes the outbound marketing piece. And that, Owen, is what we chose to work on. Now, in my particular case, I had, again, the content platform in place, but what I needed was to be able to drive traffic to, number one, know that it existed. Number two, why would I want to go there? And number three, come on over, let's convert, let's get you to be a subscriber. And so that's what we focused on. And I think with some pretty good and measurable results that have made me very happy.
Awesome. I love that. And what was your mode of getting traffic prior to leveraging LinkedIn more than ever to get people into the Napkin Academy?
Oh, an excellent question. I'm pretty old school in that regard. Yes, I have been active on social media, but really I'm one of those people that just has spent the last 15 years building an email list. And for the longest time in the world, I have always believed that your email list is probably your most critical communications tool for a remote audience. And while that remains true, obviously building that list is an outcome of what you can really do with social media. So our focus was probably twofold. Number one, get the message out broader through LinkedIn in particular, very focused social media platform for the business audience, to say, you may or may not know Dan, but what you really need to know is the fact that he has this program and it's available to you. So item one was just sort of shotgun it out, get the message out. And then item two was to get people, if not necessarily to subscribe, at least a conversion would have been to get them into my email list. Right. So from a kind of a very practical perspective, that's what we were seeking to do. And we were successful in both of those.
Awesome. Great stuff. Now, in terms of, of course, this engagement was pretty much presented as a done for you solution. You don't have to lift too many fingers. We do the writing, we publish, we handle the interworkings of your LinkedIn, and then we engage on your behalf with what I call as a dream list or our relatable list. Yeah. However, you were a great person to work with because you have a great skill of drawing, and you were able to, team up with me as a collaborative effort. While I did the writing, you did the drawing. But what quite was like your time commitment of this endeavor, required on your end during the collaboration, and then also, I guess to that point, kind of what were your responsibilities? Which maybe I just answered them, but you can kind of tie in there too.
Yeah. Oh, and it's a fantastic question. And as we think about social media, um, I'm again a little bit old school in the sense that I totally understand the marketing potential and the outreach potential for social media. But also, I'm someone who, like many people, struggles somewhere between the generation of really, really thoughtful content and then the marketing side that is required to make sure that it is kind of constantly out there on social media. And I tend to skew towards I would much rather create good signal and less noise.
Right.
And so it's always been a challenge for me to try to understand how much my day should be put into generating really, really groundbreaking, innovative, captivating, thoughtful, paradigm shifting content versus how much of my time do I just need to be keeping the machine fed to make sure that there's something new every day. And what has been great in working with you, Owen, is the idea that I've been able to focus more on the longer game of creating the ideas and the potential posts that will have real meaning to an audience. And you've been really instrumental in operationalizing that and activating that on a more daily basis. And that's exactly the kind of partnership that I think that every wannabe thought leader or content creator
Yeah.
should aim for, because they're two different jobs and it is very, very difficult to be doing both of them at the same time. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And to that point as well, I think just a simple phrase that I always share is quality over quantity. You can now with AI tools, you can spin out content left and right. And I do see that content getting pushed out. And with my eyes, it's very easy to see, oh, this was generated directly from AI, and then it was copy and pasted over to whatever social platform. So I like your point of creating more signal than noise,
Yeah.
and having that deliberative intention to why you're doing it as well.
Yeah.
So awesome.
And you know what? Oh, and I want to, if I might, you and I worked very hard together intentionally to not generate noise. And we do see this on all the platforms. There tends to be a self-fulfilling prophecy for many people who say, I'm going to position myself as a thought leader by just putting out more stuff. It doesn't work. It never works because it's the generation of noise. So there's that thoughtful, intentional approach of saying, unless I have something really meaningful to say, and I'm going to put my time into saying it, maybe it's better off to just not say anything today. But that's exactly that tension, because it's also easy then to fall off of your followers' radar. And what I wanted to comment on, Owen, was the interesting idea that it's very difficult to predict which of your most thoughtful content is going to land with an audience, and how fascinating it was having you backing up the data to see which of these posts were the ones that generated the most impressions and the most feedback. And it was not something you'd predict. So again, that's that kind of, equal distribution of forces between what's the right amount, what's the right quality, and weaving that so that you're getting the right things to the right people. And those are the ones that light up. And you can't predict what it's going to be. So you have to do both, generate and produce.
I love that. And that's something, not that I forgot, but it wasn't top of mind, that yes, you're right. Like the best post we produced was a long form post. To my understanding, it had a graphic, but it also had a link to subscribe or to get a freebie, which in social media, that's a notorious NO to do, because anytime you put a link to go to an external site, the social media algorithm is just saying, heck no, we want to keep you on our platform. Why would we send you somewhere else? But that proved to be the best one. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's a balance of signal and noise, quality and quantity, but it's also, you got to test. You kind of got to produce and publish. You got to hit the publish button, because you never know the ones that will perform over the ones that won't. And it's funny how usually the ones that you think are going to crush it don't, and then the ones that are like, oh, this is going to be okay, actually seems to do well. So
Yeah,
I
you got to take the algorithms with a little bit of dubiousness, a little grain of salt. I mean, we know this, and this is no diss on social media. The algorithms are trying to do what they want to do, and what they've been optimized to do is try to guess what's likely to get the most hits and push that stuff out there. But the algorithms can also be wrong. And in the end of the day, and I'm going to say this, and this is why I really enjoyed working with you, because you and I shared on the following piece. Good ideas, really thoughtful, well-formed, meaningful ideas always beat endless noisy crap.
Mm-hmm.
Always. That's what the algorithm cannot necessarily predict, but that's what humans and what AI is going to try to do, and we'll see how it plays out. But let's never underestimate the value of being thoughtful in what you throw out there to the world. It matters more than anything else. Quality over quantity is always, from my perspective, the answer. And the fact that we agreed on that uh, made this a unique relationship. I appreciate it.
Definitely. Yeah. No, I love that. And just quickly on, like, I guess the note of, testing or pressing publish and not exactly know, I mean, thinking this would be a good piece and it didn't do as well, or vice versa, and it did do well. What would you say are like some of the byproducts of kind of our engagement, but also working to be consistent on LinkedIn? The main focus
Oh, yeah.
intention was to drive subscribers, but just maybe touch upon like other things that you might have noted, maybe new connections came through that saw you pop up. I'm always curious to know. It's great to have that dialed in focus on the main intention we want to accomplish, but then there's these other inner workings that kind of pop up that seem to put a smile on our face and also be, give us that reason to, I guess, justify why we even took the first step to even do what we ended up doing.
Oh, sure. Well, we are, and I would imagine anybody that Owen, who you might be interested in talking to, we're business people. I mean, there's a reason for us doing what we're doing is we have a message that we want to convey, and we want to have it meaningful, and obviously at some point, to the degree that's possible, monetizable. I mean, we're doing this because there's an objective here, and so there's both quantitative data and qualitative sides to that. And just on a quantitative basis, even in the time that we worked together, some really remarkable data took place. I think that in terms of overall impressions that I was having on LinkedIn, we went up by 1,000%. I think in the first month, we saw 1,000% increase in engagement with the things that I was posting. And you can take that to the bank. For anybody in any element of business at any point, 1,000% improvement in something, that's worth paying attention to. So that's just overall impressions. And then if you think about back to the comment earlier about building and maintaining an email list, I had a pretty substantial email list because I've been curating that list for almost 15 years. But still, to see a 10% increase in reactivating that email list in a brief period of time, that's remarkable. And I think, Owen, one more piece I'd throw in there is this was your idea. Say, I was starting to think that this email list, I've kind of wrung it out as much as I can because it's the same group of people, and it's a big group of people, but it's the same group of people that I've been, talking to every month, in some cases for years. Do I need to move on from that list? And you're like one who said, no, 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 no. Let's reactivate that list by re-engaging through some of these other mechanisms. And it worked. So to see 10, 12% improvement in the size of the list based on things we're doing on LinkedIn, that's pretty cool. So and there are other measurable things that are out there. Hell, why don't I just tell you a little bit about from the business side? Why did we do this? I was trying to increase subscribers to my paid Napkin Academy site, and we did in a measurable way. And if I were to look at those numbers and see what those trends were, we added on without any other effort than just the work that you and I were doing. I'm guessing anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 additional run rate in 1 year based on the subscriptions alone. Mm-hmm. And from a consulting side, I'm going to just sort of conservatively estimate that reactivation or activation of new consulting clients probably in the time we were working together generated anyone from 30 to 50K of new revenue direct to my company. So based on, our agreement, those are pretty significant upticks based on the investment that I made into your offering.
Awesome. I love that. Well, thanks for sharing all that. I always say, like, if you want more speaking gigs, which is a big desire a lot of authors want, it's kind of top of mind game. You got to be top of mind with these event managers, et cetera. And I always say, well, being on social or showing that presence or reigniting an email list you have can bring those outcomes. So it's not rocket science, as you know. It's simple, yet it's not easy. Obviously, you got to put some work towards it. You got to put some time towards it and some thinking. But that's great. I'm glad to hear all those results, and then the byproducts are always good to hear as well. So we worked together for 3 months, to my understanding, maybe even 3.5. We kind of continued on a hybrid model towards the end of the summer, just with keeping some sort of presence. Just kind of where do you see you going moving forward in the next 6 to 12 months, whether it's with the business, with your social presence? I know you have a book coming out. Kind of
Yeah.
how would you take what we've done so far and kind of like envision a plan moving forward of how you might want to launch your next book, and just kind of continue to grow your business arms?
Well, Owen, you answered it. That is the goal. So I generated enough consulting business that I'm good for the next quarter and a half. And that's kind of the run rate that I have visibility into. For people who are running a small, kind of a one-person band consulting company, being able to have good visibility into what you're going to be doing for the next 3 to 4 months is ideal. It's never going to get to the point where you're going to say, I have, a 2-year visibility pipeline. That just doesn't happen. I've never seen that happen in 20 years of running my own little company. So 5 months is a really, really good view. So what I've been able to do is tone down a little bit on the social media side, because for the time being, knock on wood, the consulting side of the business is great. The second thing that we did is we toned it back down, because I want to, as you pointed out, I'm working on a new book. So I've got my 7th book that's going to be coming out sometime in the next year to a year and a half. And I'm very, very excited about it. But I also know from this being my 7th book that for me, it takes a year to create and write a book. It's a year-long process. And there are moments when you need to be quiet because you're just working on it. And if you started to talk about the fact that you're working on the book, you're way too far ahead of the wave. You need to be very thoughtful about announcing that you're working on a book at that moment when there starts to become something available. So if we're a year away from producing the book, now is not the time to be going on social media ranting and raving about my book. What we want to do is slow it down, let me create the content, come up with the marketing plan, and the idea being we're going to reactivate, depending on a number of factors, probably about 3 months before the release of the book. And then we go into a more thoughtful, full-on social media campaign, a drip campaign, a teaser campaign that leads up to, for anybody who's an author, that the pub date is the single most important date that you have in the sale of your book, because it's binary. There's a date before which the book is available, during which time your goal is to drive interest so that on that day that the book becomes available, whether that's in the bookstore or on Amazon or self-published, make a big deal about that date, because whatever you sell on that date is the single most important contributor you have to how the book is going to go after that. So you want to optimize everything to say, this is the date that it's available. Whatever promos you're going to do, whatever special events you're going to do, they're focused on that. I go on, but that's why we're slowing it down, because if you look over the long road, we're going to pick it up at the right moment.
One great point you made there early on, or something I captured through what you're saying, is you got to keep the main thing. And your fulfillment of your consulting and the writing of the book are the main things. Yes, social media is important. Yes, posting and having a presence is important, but it's very easy. And I see this with a lot of other people, not quite you, because you have the discipline to know what's the main focus. But they get so infatuated with the idea of I got to build this audience, and they're neglecting the people they're actually closing, or they're neglecting the work that they actually have to do, which ultimately, if you do a great job on that front, it's going to bring them more clients. What we're doing on social is really just taking an offensive approach to find more clientele, but usually you should have that, referral system, or at least just have, the word of mouth engine kind of brewing in the background. So just want to note that, very unrelated to kind of what we're discussing here, but I think your mindset of keeping the main thing is wildly important, and I think people could get value just from this whole.
And let's amplify that for a moment. If there were any lesson that I would want to share with, there are 3 kinds of authors, and we're talking about the business writing world. There are 3 kinds. There are those who are thinking about doing a book. those who are working on their book and those who have already done a book. And if you think about it in sort of the traditional funnel type view,
Yep.
everybody's thinking about doing a book. Okay, that's 100%. Nobody cares that you're thinking about working on a book because everybody else is working on a book. Let's take it down to that second notch. There are those who are actually working on their book and they're putting in the effort. That is the main thing. And the main thing is the main thing. What you want to do is convert yourself from that second level, I'm working on a book, to that third level, which is very, very narrow, of I have finished my book and it is now available. Many of us, and I've seen it 1,000 times, get so wrapped up in trying to maintain our presence on social before we've actually done the work of generating the thing that we're going to give back, that we get a lot of our priorities sideways. I love what you said. I've not heard it before, and I really like it. The big thing is the big thing. What is your big thing? Work for that. And I can guarantee if you look at the people who are social media influencers, every one of them does a big thing that is separate from social media. Generating your life around just promoting and creating more stuff on social media isn't ever the big thing. You look at anyone who's an influencer, they've got something else that they're doing, and that is the core. And then that gives them the means to then promote something or share something, even if it is multiple times a day. I love what you said.
Yeah.
Remember that the big thing is the big thing. Find out what is your big thing and put most of your time on that. And that's why, again, Owen, I sound like a broken record, but that's where I enjoyed our work together. You working, partnering with you allowed me to focus on my big thing so that you could provide kind of the air cover of making sure that the word was still getting out. Is powerful.
Awesome. I love that. Well, I appreciate that, Dan. Yeah, as we wrap up here, I mean, I think just a question, if you want to lend a sentence or two, but like if someone's listening to this and they're on the fence of, and whether it's working with my business or it's even just taking the time and the energy and the resources to actually give a social channel some more energy, LinkedIn in particular, or get their name out there, get their word out there, what could you potentially tell them to maybe share about your experience or why they should maybe take the jump if they're skeptical?
It comes back to you, Owen. We met, you reached out to me and said, this is what I offer. And I thought, well, I like the guy. I like your approach. I appreciate very, very much the fact that you're serious, you're diligent. The number one thing I've learned over these years in consulting is the single most important promise you ever make to someone is simply to do what you say you're going to do. That's it. I mean, in consulting world, in earning money for what we do, the single most important thing is simply do what you say you're going to do and be reliable. And I saw that in you, and you have proven that to be true. Then quality comes after that. Then brilliance comes after that, all of which you have. But that word of advice is, if you are working on the big thing, whether it's your consulting or your book or generating keynotes, wanting to be a public speaker, focus on that and work with Owen or someone like Owen to reliably provide that additional, thoughtful, relatively easy way to maintain your presence on social media. It's a really wise thing to do.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate that. Wishing you best of luck. Excited for book number 7 to come out soon.
Yeah.
And, of course, I'll be sharing it on my end when the time comes. And looking forward to you sharing more of your stories and more of your messages on social, and then obviously doing a lot of it offline, which is where you really thrive. And I love seeing that as well. So Thanks, Dan. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Owen.